Did you know that Red Bull's technical crisis could push Max Verstappen to make the most radical decision of his career? The championship-winning team is facing problems so serious that even Verstappen himself has issued unprecedented warnings. What's going on inside Red Bull that threatens to undermine its dominance in Formula One? In this video, we'll break down the Red Bull RB21's most serious problems and how they could forever change Max Verstappen's career and the balance of power in F1. Max Verstappen has unquestionably been Red Bull's competitive heart in recent years. Since his rise to championship status, he has become the team's absolute benchmark. But what we are seeing in this 2025 season marks an unexpected turn that has taken the entire paddock by surprise. The situation is so serious that it is no longer just about performance. It is about credibility, trust, and above all, the future. The Red Bull RB21 has exposed deep cracks. It is not a car with minor problems that can be fixed in a few races. It is a car with structural deficiencies that are seriously limiting Verstappen's performance, even as he continues to deliver performances at the limits of his capabilities. For the first time in a long time, Red Bull seems to have no immediate answers. And that, for a team accustomed to leading, is a problem that grows more pronounced every weekend. The problems became impossible to hide from the first race in Bahrain. The radio messages leaked after the race revealed unprecedented frustration. No matter how hard he tried to maintain his composure, the feeling was clear. Max was driving a car that didn't allow him to compete at the level expected of a four-time world champion. Team principal Christian Horner was quick to acknowledge the severity of the problem. His statements were forceful and surprisingly honest. He admitted that nothing went right for us from the start of the race, and that the car suffers from fundamental problems that can't be solved simply by adjusting settings. This public admission not only showed the magnitude of the crisis, but also opened the door to speculation about how this could affect the relationship between Verstappen and Red Bull. The team is facing a combination of technical failures that intertwine and exacerbate each other. From a braking system that doesn't respond as it should to an aerodynamic imbalance that affects the car's stability, every detail seems to count against Red Bull. Even tire degradation has become a constant enemy, to the point where the wheels are losing performance at an alarmingly rapid rate. It's a technical cocktail that is leaving Verstappen without the tools to defend his position as championship leader. But the problem doesn't end there. Operational errors in the pits have added to the tension. In Bahrain, for example, Red Bull made unacceptable mistakes during pit stops, including delays due to electrical problems in the pit lane that cost valuable seconds. In a team where every millisecond counts, these errors are not only costly, but also send a worrying signal. Something is failing in the structure that previously seemed impenetrable. This is the context surrounding Verstappen in 2025, a team that, although still has resources, seems to have momentarily lost its technical compass. Max, who is used to winning and fighting for everything, now finds himself struggling with a car that limits his options and with an internal situation that tests his patience and his confidence in the project. Rumors about Max Verstappen's future have begun to multiply at a pace that Red Bull can't control. The signs that the internal situation is spiraling out of control are increasingly evident and are no longer circulating only among specialized journalists, but are beginning to resonate in conversations within rival teams themselves. When the pressure is this high and the results aren't forthcoming, rumors aren't simply background noise. They're early warnings of potential moves that could completely change the balance of Formula One. One of the strongest rumors points directly to the possibility that Verstappen is seriously considering an early departure from Red Bull if the technical issues aren't resolved in the short term. Although his contract runs beyond 2025, the performance clause that would allow him to evaluate his continued participation seems to be more alive than ever. These types of clauses, designed to protect the driver when the car doesn't live up to their expectations, are usually confidential, but some sources close to the paddock are already mentioning them more frequently. This is no coincidence. In F1, when a rumor takes hold so strongly, it's rarely just speculation. Verstappen's recent statements to media outlets like The Telegraph have reinforced this theory. His words were direct and unfiltered. He said that if the team continues on this path of underperformance, it simply won't be able to fight for the championship. And the most relevant aspect wasn't just what he said, but how he said it. Max has gone from diplomacy to a clear warning. He's no longer the driver who publicly protects the team. Now he's a champion sending out strong messages to make it clear that his patience has its limits. What worries Red Bull even more is that Verstappen isn't talking about superficial problems or simple details that need fixing. He himself has pointed out the car's most critical areas: poor performance on curbs, lack of confidence in slow corners, and fragility on uneven surfaces. These are structural aspects of the design, not minor tweaks. And when a driver of Max's caliber so clearly exposes the car's weaknesses, the message he sends is twofold. He's calling for urgent solutions, but he's also laying the groundwork to justify a possible drastic decision in the near future. Within Red Bull, tensions are also felt. Helmut Marko has publicly admitted that the constructor's title is practically lost, and that even the driver's championship looks very complicated. This lack of confidence has become fertile ground for further speculation about Max's future. Some analysts suggest that Marko is trying to be realistic, but others believe his statements are a way to prepare the team and fans for a possible scenario where Verstappen decides to explore other options. These kinds of rumors don't usually appear accidentally. In Formula One, when leaks begin to emerge consistently from different sources, it's because conversations have already begun, even if only on an informal level. And when Verstappen's name enters that game, it means the entire market is starting to move, because all teams want to be ready for any opportunity. The situation within Red Bull has evolved critically and is reaching a point where tensions are impossible to hide. Christian Horner, team principal, has gone from strategic calm to a stance bordering on despair. The team's public statements, once optimistic and cautious, are now marked by a tone of urgency and a sincerity unusual in Formula One. Horner has bluntly admitted that the Red Bull RB21 has deep structural problems that cannot be solved with simple upgrades. This type of admission is unusual for a team that for years has maintained an image of perfection and absolute control over its technical development. One of the most serious points is that Red Bull has lost confidence in its own simulation tools. Christian Horner bluntly explained that the wind tunnel they use is generating data that does not match what the car shows on track. This failure in technical correlation is not minor. It means that every improvement the team makes to the car is, in essence, a gamble. There's no guarantee that the new parts will perform as expected. This is one of the worst-case scenarios for a team competing at the highest level. If they can't trust their simulations, the entire development process becomes unstable, and the chances of reversing the situation in time are drastically reduced. The wind tunnel issue isn't just serious for what it represents now. Red Bull won't be able to open a new tunnel until 2027. This means that, for at least 2 more seasons, they will have to continue working with tools that don't offer the precision they need. This is a key point that directly affects Max Verstappen's position. As a driver, he needs to be certain that the team can provide him with a competitive car in the short term. But right now, that guarantee doesn't exist. And Verstappen knows this better than anyone. Verstappen's frustration has been growing race after race. His radio messages are now much more aggressive than in previous seasons. It's no longer just a matter of minor complaints about isolated errors. What we perceive as a driver who feels limited, trapped in a car that doesn't allow him to compete at the level his ambition demands. What were once simple complaints are now warnings. And these warnings are already resonating both inside and outside the team. Helmut Marko, one of Verstappen's closest associates at Red Bull, has begun to take a much more realistic tone. Marko has acknowledged that the constructor's title is practically lost, and that even Verstappen's chances of winning the Drivers' Championship are very limited. This stance is very revealing. If the team itself publicly admits that the championship is slipping away, it means the internal situation is more delicate than what appears from the outside. And this puts Verstappen in an awkward position, because for the first time in years, he finds himself defending a project that no longer guarantees him a title fight. Furthermore, Verstappen has been very clear in describing the car's specific flaws. He's not just talking about speed or overall performance. He has precisely identified the weak points: the lack of grip on curbs, difficulties in slow corners, and the inability to properly manage tire temperature. These are fundamental problems in the car's design. They cannot be solved with minor tweaks or simple aerodynamic developments. These kinds of details show that Verstappen fully understands the seriousness of the situation. And it's very likely that he's already evaluating how long he's willing to wait for Red Bull to solve it. Red Bull, for its part, has tried to respond by introducing technical updates, such as those presented in Japan and Miami. But the impact of these improvements has been limited. Even the team's own engineers have admitted that the gains they are making are marginal. These improvements help them stay competitive on some tracks, but they don't close the huge gap McLaren has opened up this season. Verstappen knows this, and although he continues to fight with everything he has, each race seems to reinforce the idea that Red Bull will not be able to offer him a truly dominant car this year. The pressure on Red Bull is now double. On the one hand, they have to resolve the pressing technical issues. On the other, they must convince Verstappen that the project remains solid and that the team can return to the top in a short time. This is an extremely difficult challenge because rivals are already lurking. And what's at stake is not just the current season, but the continuation of one of the most successful partnerships in recent Formula One history. Verstappen's body language is also very revealing. In post-race interviews, his frustration is evident. He no longer seems confident or relaxed. What he conveys is a mixture of discomfort and discontent. What we've seen this season is much more than a simple setback for Red Bull. The RB21's problems are serious, deep-rooted, and above all, structural. We're not talking about tweaks that can be resolved with a weekend update. Here we're dealing with technical flaws that touch the heart of the project: aerodynamics, brakes, tire management, pit reliability, and most worryingly, an infrastructure limited by a wind tunnel that no longer provides reliable data. It's a critical situation that, for the first time in many years, has left Red Bull in a defensive role, trying to contain the damage rather than lead authoritatively. The gap with McLaren is real and seems to widen every weekend, with a British team that has proven to have a much more complete and consistent car. Max Verstappen, for his part, has made it very clear that he's not willing to ignore these problems indefinitely. The signals he's given are compelling. His public statements, his radio messages, and even his body language convey the frustration of someone accustomed to winning and now feeling limited by the tools his team offers him. Throughout this season, Red Bull has attempted to respond. It has introduced improvements, tried to calm the situation with aerodynamic updates and small improvements to the suspension, but so far, none of these solutions have been significant enough to close the gap with McLaren. The engineers have been honest. The current improvements are not revolutionary, they are merely temporary patches that do not solve the core of the problem. Meanwhile, McLaren continues to rack up wins, build confidence, and dominate with a car that shows no weaknesses. The superiority McLaren has achieved in 2025 is no coincidence. It is the result of consistent development, a solid structure, and a driver like Oscar Piastri who has capitalized on every opportunity. The outlook for Red Bull is undoubtedly one of the most complex in recent years. Helmut Marko himself has already acknowledged that, at this point, the Constructors' Championship is practically out of reach, and that Verstappen's chances of fighting for the title are increasingly slim. These statements are unusual for Red Bull. They reflect a team that understands that the situation has gotten out of hand, at least in the short term.